Hello everyone, welcome to another interesting and informative session of the Analyst brought to you by Vajiram and Ravi. In today's session, we will discuss 7 important articles from the Hindu in the easiest language possible. The topics are as follows. From your analysis section, which also provide you the much important avenue to practice daily answer writing. In the first topic, we'll try to understand the prevailing shortcomings in the Lokpal Act of 2013. Then in the second topic, we'll try to understand the election mechanism of Rajya Sabha election in the context of the recently concluded elections in Jammu and Kashmir. Then from your simplified section, we'll take up 5 news. We will not only try to simplify the news for you, but also provide you the much important value addition keeping in mind the approaching prelims 2026. So, stay tuned. The lead article highlights the prevailing shortcomings in the Lokpal Act 2013, which has led to the declining public engagement since 2019. The issue which forms an important component of your GS2 paper under the larger theme of the government policies and its intervention. So let's first try to understand the backdrop for the enactment of Lokpal Act 2013. In this context, you guys can recall the social contract theory of Rashtriya, according to which the state and the citizen, they get into a kind of contract where the citizen, they willingly give up on some of their personal freedoms and rights in exchange of the protection and development which is offered by the state to these citizens. This kind of principle forms the basis for the legitimacy of the authority of the state and the government. To understand this in simple way, you guys can recall the Income Tax Act of 1961, under which the government taxes the individual and collect the public money and keep it in the Consolidated Fund of India, from which basically it provides the corpus for the various kind of schemes which are launched by the government. These individuals willingly agree to kind of share a substantial portion of their income to the government, because in return they are expecting certain basic public infrastructure and some basic public services. But what if these funds are misappropriated? Or to actually avail these basic government services and infrastructure, you are required to pay extra, keep this in mind, legally unauthorized money, which we also in simpler terms called as bribe, to the government functionary. So this violation of the social contract theory is what we constitute or call as corruption. Thus, the former President of India, Pratibha Patil, very rightfully said that corruption acts as the enemy of development and good governance, and thus we need to get rid of it, for which the public, the people and the government shall work hand to hand or in cohesion. Now, as we, the people of India, we have not raised voice against such corruption taking place. Yes, we have. You guys can recall the tragic case of Satyendra Dubey, who was an Indian Engineering Services officer. What he did? He tried to expose the corruption which was taking place in the Golden Quadrilateral Highway project. And what was the result of it? He died in mysterious condition in the year of 2013. Thus, the people who are in power and are misusing this power, time and again have tried to silence such voice of reason. But despite their effort, the kind of the clutter around the corruption was in the air back in the year of 2008 to 10 in our country. So you guys can recall that in 2010 there was a CAG report which basically highlighted the loss of public money, public revenue of around 70,000 crore. Why? Because of the scam which took place in the grant of telecom licensing of 2G spectrum, or the very infamous Colgate scam, where according to the Central Bureau of Investigation, there was a loss to the tune of rupees 1.86 lakh crore to the government exchequer. And due to this, the Supreme Court had to cancel the allocation of 214 coal blocks. Now some of you may will ask that at that point of time, was not there any institutional mechanism which existed to actually kind of curtail this rampant corruption which was taking place? Yes, indeed there was. There were institutions like, for example, Central Vigilance Commission, Central Bureau of Investigation. But due to the kind of overarching control of the executive body, they actually lacked independence, and that's why Supreme Court actually termed them as a caged parrots. Thus, all these issues, they kind of augmented, and there was a need which was felt to create an independent statutory body to check on corruption which is being committed by the higher government officials and functionaries. This demand was raised and masses were sensitized by the India Against Corruption movement which took place in the year of 2013, led by people like Anna Hazare, Arvind Kejriwal, Kumar Vishwas, etc. Also keep this in mind that such an idea to create such independent statutory body which is going to check or act as a kind of a vigilant body to check on the corruption which is being committed by such higher functionary. This idea was first proposed by Santhanam Committee in the year of 1963, and kind of adhering to this idea, a bill to create such body was first put on the floor of the parliament in the year of 1968. So from the year of 1968 to its enactment in the year of 2013, 8 such bills were already kept on the floor of the parliament, but they never saw the light of the day. Thus, Lokpal Act 2013 ultimately, when all of this noise was taking place against the corruption, there was a political pressure which came on the government. The government had to take action, and thus it led to enactment of this act which established Lokpal at the central level and Lokayukt at the state level to inquire into the allegations of corruption which are covered under the Prevention of Corruption Act of 1988. What is the composition of Lokpal? So the act basically provides that there will be a chairperson. This chairperson will be either a retired or a serving Chief Justice of India or a judge of Supreme Court. And at least 50% of these 8 members will be judicial members. So they will be either serving or retired judges of Supreme Court or a serving Chief Justice of any High Court. The remaining 4 members or the remaining 50% of the member will be legal professionals who have at least experiences of up to 25 years. Then, out of these 8 members, 50% of the seats will also be reserved for the members of scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, other backward classes, minorities, women, etc. Keep this in mind. Even though the act was enacted in the year of 2013, the first Lokpal body was constituted 6 years down the line in the year of 2019, with the first chairperson being Justice Pinaki Chandra Ghosh. And such chairperson and members are actually appointed by whom? The President of India. And they are actually selected on the recommendation of a committee. The committee, which is chaired by the Prime Minister and consists of a Speaker of Lok Sabha, Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha, Chief Justice of India or any nominee of him, as well as any eminent jurist which is nominated by the President of India. Thus, what constitutes the jurisdiction of the Lokpal? When we are saying that it is a body to actually check on the corruption higher official, what actually constitutes this higher official? So, even the Prime Minister, any minister, any member of parliament, if you guys will become an IAS officer, you will fall under the Group A services of the government. So, any Group A to D officers of central government, as well as even if you are an employee of public sector units and any autonomous body. Keep this in mind that the jurisdiction of the Lokpal does not only constitute the government bodies but even the non-governmental organizations are covered as well in 2 cases. First, if they have received over 10 lakh rupees of support from the government, or if over 1 crore rupees support they have actually received from any foreign sources under the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act of 2010. Now, whatever the provisions which we are reading, keep them very dear to in your mind. Why? Because they will actually help you to understand the issues which surrounds the Lokpal Act. So, what are the prosecution power of the Lokpal? Lokpal body can actually direct investigation of any such complaint which it has received against any such government official to which body? The Central Bureau of Investigation. For which purpose it can also order to attach property, seize document and even recommend prosecutions in the special court. any such trial or any such investigation which is being committed by the Central Bureau of Investigation shall take place in a very time-bound manner. So, for example, the preliminary level of inquiry shall be conducted within 3 months, and any such detailed investigation shall be conducted within 6 months, but can be extended up to maximum of 1 year. And then the prosecution by these special courts shall be completed within 1 to 2 years if it has been ordered by the Lokpal. What is the specific roles of Central Bureau of Investigation and Central Vigilance Commission? The Act provides the functional independence to the CBI in Lokpal referred cases, as well as the Central Vigilance Commission actually supervises the cases which are related to the group B, C and D employees which has been referred by the Lokpal. Are there any restrictions which is actually applied on the Lokpal body by the Act itself? The answer is yes. So the Act says that there are restrictions on the inquiry into certain Prime Minister's actions if they are related to international relation, the internal and external security. Like let's say for example, if there are any such allegations being made against the Prime Minister in the case of the Operation Sindhu, or for example to maintain public order, or in the case of atomic energy. If any case or any allegation is being made against the Prime Minister and Lokpal wants to create a preliminary level of inquiry, then the investigation can proceed only with the approval of 2/3 of the Lokpal member and must be held in camera under confidential condition. So what are the issues which surround the Lokpal body, which also forms the crux of today's article? Today's article says that while the Lokpal decision to actually float a tender for 7 luxury cars has triggered public outrage, the anti-Graft's body's performance record actually shows a sharp decline in the public engagement. So for example, the number of complaints the Lokpal body actually received from the year of 2019 till the year of 2023, which peaked at almost 2,469, now it has dropped to only 233 such complaints which has been received by the Lokpal till the month of September this year. Also, the same article today tells us that how 90% of the complaint which has been received by the Lokpal since 2019, it was actually received in the first 4 years itself. So Lokpal has been kind of dysfunctional from the year of 2024 onwards. This is also showcased that how preliminary level of inquiry was ordered only in 289 cases, which basically constitute of 2% of the total cases. So there were some activists, they filed RTI application under the Right to Information Act of 2005, and the government had to tell these activists that how there is no annual report which has been uploaded by the Lokpal body since the year of 2021. The lack of seriousness is also reflected that how this body which actually deals with the prosecution against the complaint which has been filed against the government official, it has finally created a prosecution body in the month of June 2025. It took them 6 years to actually create the prosecution body. Some of you will argue that, sir, when this body was being created or being asked to create in the year back of 2011, at that point of time, we were basically ranking abysmal at the corruption perception index. So all these 2G spectrum case, coal gates scams, all of these things which were happening, the result of that was that our country was ranking 94th in the CPI 2011. Now, there are not so many complaints which are actually going to the Lokpal body because obviously there is no corruption which exists in our country. However, somehow, miraculously, we are now ranking 96 out of 180 countries in the Corruption Perception Index of 2024, which is released by the Transparency International, in which Nordic countries have again topped. Denmark has got the first rank, followed by Finland and Singapore. So what are the major issues? Why there is so less public engagement by this body of Lokpal? The first and the fundamental reason is that it is not a constitutional body, rather it is only a statutory body. And thus, as per the provisions of the Act, which has obviously been designed by the parliamentarians to check upon themselves only, the Lokpal cannot conduct a suo motu investigation. Rather, it can only, let's say for example, conduct an investigation or a preliminary level of inquiry if it has received complaint. So just imagine me as a Lokpal body. I can see directly from my naked eye an IS officer, let's say for example, conducting a corruption. There is someone who is giving bribe to him. Can I take suo motu action in this case? No. Why? Because I will patiently wait for that person who is giving bribe to come to me and complain. Then I will basically going to investigate in this particular case. That person will never come to me. Why? Because that person has Satyendra Dubey's case in his mind. Second issue is that, as you can see, that the whole Lokpal body does not have any independent body to actually conduct investigation, and rather it is over reliant on Central Bureau of Investigation to actually conduct preliminary level of inquiry or investigation. Now in this context, recall the statement made by the Supreme Court or observation made by the Supreme Court that how Central Bureau of Investigation is a caged parrot. So to actually conduct inquiry into allegation of corruption against such high level of government official as up to the level of Prime Minister, don't you guys think that the CBI is actually required to be a completely independent functional body without having any pressure or control from the central government? Some of you will argue that indeed sir, now CBI is actually an independent functional body. How? Because the director of the CBI is actually selected by a committee. This committee consists of Prime Minister, Chief Justice of India, leader of opposition. So we can actually predict that there might be less political influence on the selection of the director of the CBI. Thus, on the paper, it actually seems to be an independent functional body. But at the same point of time, keep this in mind that the budget of the CBI is passed by none other than central government. The officials of the CBI are appointed by the central government, and it also acts as a receiving authority for all the annual confidential reports of the senior CBI officials. Thus, indeed, they can actually pressurize any such decision or investigation which is being made by the Central Bureau of Investigation. Then the act itself provides for certain limitations, like for example, it does not amend the section 6A of the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1946, through which the CBI is eventually created. This particular act, it specifically says that CBI cannot inquire or investigate into any offence which has been committed by an officer of the rank of Joint Secretary or above of Government of India unless and until it has got permission from the central government. So obviously the provisions of another act actually act as a kind of a restriction for the investigation which can be conducted by the CBI. Then there exists further ambiguity in the act, such as for example the arbitrary time frame for actually conducting the trial. So the section 35 of the Lokpal Act of 2013 states that how any such trial, if it has gone to the special court, it has to be completed within 2 years, how we studied. So some of you will again argue that is actually a very good provision. The trial is being conducted in a very time-bound manner. But the ambiguity which prevails in the act, it does not specify that what will happen if the trial is not completed within 2 years. So this ambiguity can actually be prevailed by a accused to actually kind of get abandoned the case altogether. Justice delayed is justice denied. And in our country, we have the culture of tariq pe tariq. So it actually acts as a kind of an incentivization to the accused to keep on delaying the case somehow. This can also be seen from the newspaper article itself, the heading of it, which actually provides you very important data, which states that how the country's first anti-corruption body, the data was published in the year of 2023, to investigate complaint against public functionaries like for example Prime Minister, has submitted, or let's say for example they have actually accepted that we have not prosecuted even a single person accused of graft till date. And they actually disposed 68% of the corruption complaint against the public servant without any action, without even giving it for preliminary inquiry. They were like, nahi, maza nahi aaya, jaane do, right? Then the impediment which prevails in the act, like for example, the power and the jurisdiction of Lokayukt in the state. So the act itself makes it mandatory for the Lokayukt to be set up in each state within 1 year. But the state legislature have been provided complete freedom to actually determine the power and the jurisdiction of the Lokayukt. Following this kind of relaxed provision in the act itself, even till today, there are certain states like, for example, Nagaland, Telangana, etc., who have not created the body of Lokayukt even though it was mandatory to create. Then the provisions of the act further disincentivize the whistleblowers. It suggests that Lokpal shall not inquire or investigate into any complaint if the complaint has been made after the expiry of a period of 7 years. So don't you think it actually acts as a kind of a restriction for the exposition of some very complex scam? Because it may take actually years to unearth the various evidences. At the same point of time, many of the time, such scams are unearthed when the political regime in the power changes, when the people actually gain enough consciousness and courage to actually spit down the facts. At the same point of time, the act does not address the crony capitalism. Why? Because the act is dealing with those issues of corruptions which prevailed in the Prevention of Corruption Act 1988, but that act itself is actually a kind of a weak legislative mechanism to fix the responsibility of the private sector. So the crony capitalism issue is not addressed by the Lokpal Act as well. That is why the opposition government is actually kind of criticizing, the opposition in our country is criticizing the Lokpal. Also with the recent act which they have conducted, like for example, they have actually issued tender to purchase 7 BMW car. Now imagine two aspirants having a conversation about this headline. What happened? The Lokpal body, actually designed to check on the corruption by the government official, has ordered what? A luxurious BMW car. Why they require it? To actually check the corruption. They were not able to go with, let's say for example, a lesser Innova or Fortuner in that case. So they actually want to check the use of luxury by traveling from these luxurious cars. Also, there are certain articles which highlights that how from 5 years on, Lokpal is now the god of small things, where they have kind of specifically targeted certain opposition leaders. Thus, what can be the way forward? Many of the time, I have suggested the students to use certain government committees which have been created. That actually provides you more value, more value and validation to your conclusion and way forward. But in this case, I also stand guilty because the government has not created any committee to review the Lokpal yet. So we are going to take the way forward or suggestions from civil society, and that is National Campaign for People's Right to Information, NCPRI, which has said that we should provide constitutional status to Lokpal. The appointment and the removal of senior CBI officials who are dealing with specific cases which has been transferred by the Lokpal, that shall be done only after the approval of the Lokpal body. Then we also need to create an independent investigation body, an independent prosecution body. They shall also be provided with suo motu vigilance, as well as whistleblower protection shall be provided to actually provide the courage to the common man to raise their voice against corruption. And ultimately, we can actually use the section 48 of the Lokpal Act 2013 itself, which says that how Lokpal is actually required to publish its annual report, which shall be laid down in the parliament, and a detailed discussion on that shall be taken place. Ultimately, keep a very good quote or an idea by the Chief Justice of India as a conclusion that how beyond scams that grab headlines, corruption hurts poor and disadvantages in the daily life, and thus it is diminishing the public trust. So we need to uphold the constitutional principles of equality. With this, we move forward to the next news, where the article highlights the issue of cross-voting which took place in Rajya Sabha election, which was taking place in the Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir, and thus undermined the principle of free and fair election, forming an important component of your GS2 paper under the larger theme of functions of parliament. So what is the context of the news? The article highlights that how the biennial election to the 4 of Rajya Sabha seats from Jammu and Kashmir actually witnessed a curious case of 6 invalid votes across the 3 rounds of polling, and it kept on increasing in each round. Eventually, the National Conference ended up winning 3 seats because they had larger number in the Legislative Assembly, and the BJP actually snagged the remaining seat in a surprise win. Keep this in mind that these 4 seats of Rajya Sabha from the Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir was actually vacant since the year of 2021. Why? Because the term of the Member of Parliaments actually ended while the Union Territory was under the President rule since the revocation of Article 370. Now the idea is that to actually fill this vacant seat, the Election Commission of India had actually asked for a presidential order. The same kind of presidential order which was actually passed during the first ever Rajya Sabha election which took place in the year of 1952. And as per the presidential order, the terms for 2/3 seats actually did not end, and thus only 1/3 member of the Rajya Sabha retired that year. Now, why did this took place? So to understand this, keep this in mind that Parliament consists of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, which act as an upper house, and President. President, even though is not a member of either of the houses, yet plays a very important role and function in the whole parliament system, considering the Article 111 of the Constitution, according to which any bill which has been passed by Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha cannot become an act unless and until it has got the assent from the President of India. Here, the Rajya Sabha actually act as the upper house of the parliament and thus represent the interest of state and union territories. So it has a total of 250 members. 238 members actually represent the states and union territories, and keep a very important thing here that they are indirectly elected by the people of India, while 12 members are actually nominated by the President of India. So, the idea is that Rajya Sabha here actually act as a permanent body. Thus, unlike Lok Sabha, it does not dissolve every 5 years. Now, some of you may will ask why. So, imagine a hypothetical scenario where Pakistan has attacked us in the future, an event which is very unlikely to happen, considering they don't have food on their table and they don't have spare time from stealing our trophies. But just for the sake of imagination, let's imagine that Pakistan has attacked our country, and thus our president is required to pass a national emergency under Article 352 of the Constitution to proclaim such national emergency. Keep this in mind that under the provisions of 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978, such proclamation of national emergency shall be passed by the Houses of Parliament within a span of 1 month. But what if the election for General Assembly has taken place and thus Lok Sabha has actually been dissolved? So in this particular case, such proclamation of emergency can be passed by Rajya Sabha itself, and that is why it acts as a permanent body, does not dissolve at all. That is exactly what has been actually created from the Article 83 of the Constitution itself, which says that 1/3 members of the Rajya Sabha will retire every second year, and 2/3 will continue for their term of total 6 years. So when we have understood this, let's try to understand that why there are many of the time there are allegations that the Rajya Sabha actually act as nothing but a stepney to the tire of parliament. What is the actual importance of elections in Rajya Sabha? So keep this in mind that whenever the money bill comes in, the power of Rajya Sabha actually goes out of the window. So money bill under Article 110 can be introduced only in Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha does not have power to amend or reject a money bill. The maximum it can do is that it can withhold the bill for the maximum period of 14 days, that's all. Who decides whether a bill is of the character of money bill or not? The Speaker of Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha can only discuss the budget which has been enacted by the Parliament and thus cannot vote on the demand for grants. Even the resolution for discontinuation of this national emergency can be passed only by Lok Sabha. And under Article 75 of the Constitution, the Council of Ministers are directly accountable to the Lok Sabha, and thus Rajya Sabha cannot pass non-confidence motion to actually check on the executives. When we are looking at this particular table, it seems to justify this allegation that indeed Rajya Sabha act as a stepney tire. Then why Rajya Sabha's elections are so important? Why we are discussing it? Because it also has equal status with Lok Sabha in certain cases. For example, in introduction and passage of any ordinary and even constitutional amendment bills. For amendment or passage of any bill of financial bill under Article 117 Clause 3. For election and impeachment of President. For the removal of Chief Justice of India, Judges of Supreme Court, High Court, Chief Election Commissioner. Even for the approval of ordinances which has been passed by the President under Article 123 of the Constitution, and the Rajya Sabha approval is also required for proclamation of all three types of emergencies. National emergency under Article 352, President rule under Article 356, and financial emergency under Article 360 of the Constitution. But there are certain instances where Rajya Sabha has actually special powers, the power which even Lok Sabha does not have. For example, under Article 67 of the Constitution, Rajya Sabha alone can initiate the removal of Vice President. Under Article 249, it is actually authorized, or it can authorize the Parliament to make a law on state list. Under Article 312, it can actually authorize the Parliament to create all new All India services. As well as it can approve all type of emergency even if Lok Sabha has been dissolved, as we were discussing. Thus, the elections to the Rajya Sabha actually holds a paramount importance, and the functions of which has been defined under the 4th schedule of the Constitutions and under Article 280, where the 238 representatives of states and UTs, as we discussed, are actually indirectly elected. 12 are nominated by the President of India. These 12 nominated members actually comes from the field of art, science, literature or social service. Keep this in mind that allocation of Rajya Sabha seat actually depends upon the population of the state's UT, and thus the number of members from each state actually varies. So it is unlike in the case of USA, where each state has 2 members or 2 representatives in the House of Senate. That is not the case in our country. So for example, UP being the populous state, it has 31 members. While like states like for example Goa or Tripura, they have only 1 members each. Every second year, 1/3 of the member retire after completing the respective 6-year term. Try to solve this particular question as well. A question which you should ask to yourself is that the elected member of these respective assemblies actually elect the Rajya Sabha members. So how this concept that the member of Rajya Sabha are indirectly elected, keep this in mind, that by the elected member of the legislative assembly of a state, how does that functions? So to understand this, let's first learn some facts. The elections in the Rajya Sabha actually takes place through 2 keywords: single transferable vote as well as through the system of proportional representation, where the candidates are fielded by the political parties. And let's say for example, if I want to be a candidate, then my candidature shall be proposed by at least 10 members of the state assembly or by at least 10% of the party strength in the house. So to fill the number of vacant seats, the candidates are actually required to need a quota of vote or support from a particular number of its existing MLAs to win. And this is the formula which you guys can see here. Let's try to simplify it. So keep this in mind that in the case of Lok Sabha election, there is first past the post system. Even if I got 1 more vote than my would get the license to do corruption for next 5 years. But in Rajya Sabha, the election is taking place through the system of a single transferable vote and through the system of proportional representation. So we'll try to understand these 2 keywords one by one. To do that, let's imagine that there exists a hypothetical state where they have 100 members in their legislative assembly. So what is the total number of votes which can be polled? 100. Now, when the Rajya Sabha election is going to take place in this legislative assembly, this state has 3 members or 3 representatives in Rajya Sabha. So the total number of seats available for which the election is going to take place is 3. So 100 divided by 3 plus 1 becomes your 25. 25 plus 1 becomes your 26. 26 into 100, and as why we are multiplying 100 here, because the value of vote is the number of MLAs into 100. So 26 into 100 divided by 100. So basically, if I want to get elected in Rajya Sabha from this particular state, then I need the support or vote of 26 MLAs here. I hope this is clear. 26 elected MLAs. That is the idea. Now let's imagine that in this hypothetical state of TO, there exist two parties. One is party A, National Conference. They have got majority in the election which took place. They have got 70 seats. And then there is a party B, BJP, which has got 30 seats. Now the idea is that when the voting is going to take place, here as a voter, I do not have only one vote power, where I can vote only for one person. Rather, I can vote for all the candidates who are actually standing in this election in the order of preference. That is why it is termed as a single vote but transferable. So I will give my preference. So let's say to fight for these 3 seats, 5 candidates actually stood up in the election. Here now I have a preference. I will say, okay, I will give my first preference to candidate A, then second preference, third preference, like that. To get elected in Rajya Sabha, how much vote I require? 26. Basically, I need to be the first preference of 26 member of the Legislative Assembly. So, let's say there is a party 70 with 70 seats, party A, National Conference. I am the leader of National Conference. I would direct 26 member of my party to give first preference to candidate A. Congratulations, candidate A has won. Now, I am remaining with 44 such member who can give the first preference to another candidate. I direct another 26 member to give preference to another candidate, that is candidate B, that also ends up winning. Now I am left with only 18 member who can give their first preference to anyone. But in this case, what happens? So let's say for example, I need 26 first preferences. Now look at the party B. Party B has 30 seats. So they can also give their first preference to 26, at least 26 member can give their first preference to candidate C here. And thus the candidate C will actually end up winning from the party B. So 2 candidates won from party A, 1 from party B. That is the ratio of what? 66%, 23%, 33%. That is the almost direct proportional representation of the strength of the party in the number of seats. That is why it is called as system of proportional representation. So till the year of 1998, the state assemblies used to calculate the number of seats which they can win in Rajya Sabha, and thus till the year of 1998, no elections actually used to take place. Then when the Rajya Sabha election was taking place in the Maharashtra Legislative Assembly in 1998, people actually started the practice of cross voting which took place in this election in Jammu and Kashmir as well. This idea of cross voting actually ends up undermining the democratic principle. For example, first and foremost, it undermines the kind of the say or the right of the voters, because these members are basically acting as the representative of the people. That is why we say that the members in Rajya Sabha are indirectly elected by the people. So now when these members are voting for some other candidate from some other party, don't you think they are also undermining the mandate which has been given to them by the larger public? Thus, what happened that by 2003 amendment to the Representation of People Act 1951, Section 59 was amended, which now says that the election has to be held through open ballot. You have to show that for whom you have actually done the voting. Then in Kuldeep Nair versus Union of India 2006, it said, Supreme Court held, that the candidate is not required to be elector in the state from where they are contesting for the Rajya Sabha. So if I have good links with a political party, even though if let's say for example I am coming from the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, I can get elected in the Rajya Sabha from the state of Tamil Nadu. Keep this in mind that as per the Election Commission of India, its notification in 2017, the anti-defection law does not apply in the case of elections to the Rajya Sabha. So now it basically means that I am not bound to listen to the directive which has been given to me by the party whip. Don't you think in this case it can actually lead to the practices of corruption and bribery taking place to change the votes, which actually happened in this case, where National Conference lost 7 votes, where 4 MLAs actually cross-voted, and thus 3 votes were actually held as invalid. Also keep this in mind that as per the Salesh Manubhai case of 2018, the none of the above application is not applicable in the case of Rajya Sabha. So keep these provisions very dear to you. It can appear as a question in the mains examination as well as the prelims examination, and we move forward to the next news, where we'll try to cover the Life Insurance Corporation and the insurance sector in our country in the light of the opposition which has demanded an inquiry by the Public Accounts Committee of the Parliament for what? To actually investigate or what it described as a disturbing misuse of the LIC funds to specifically benefit the Adani group. So LIC was allegedly pushed to buy Adani bonds after fraud charges, a claim which has been denied by the public sector insurer. Keep this in mind that Life Insurance Corporation or LIC act as a statutory body as it was created under the LIC Act of 1956, leading to the nationalization of the life insurance sector, which was formed after nationalizing 245 private life insurance companies. The non-life sector was actually nationalized in the year of 1972. So when LIC was created in 1956, at that point of time, the insurance penetration in our country was of 1% of the population. Till the year of 1999, this insurance penetration only increased by 1% to 2%. Thus, to check into this matter, the government created the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India (IRDI) in 1999. On the suggestion of which, from the year of 2000, the whole insurance sector was kind of non-nationalized, leading to the entry of private and foreign players. As well as in the budget 2019, 100% foreign direct investment is now allowed in the insurance sector, and IRDI basically envisages to become the 6th largest insurance market by the year of 2030. However, to achieve this dream, there are several roadblocks which actually exist in the insurance sector. The first and foremost is that the insurance penetration in our country, that is, the total amount of insurance premium or the interest which is being paid by the total public who has availed the insurance, divided by the total GDP of the country, that is meager or abysmally low at 4%. To understand the context, look at the kind of the insurance density or insurance penetration which actually prevails in USA, that is 11%. In non-life sector, it is actually 9%. The world's average is 6.8%, while the insurance penetration in our country is a meager 4%. So it basically shows that how, let's say for example, if we are generating 100 rupees, we are only insuring 4 rupees worth of product, or let's say for example the life of an individual, only 4 rupees we are actually kind of ensuring from or preventing it from any kind of financial or market risk. The second is the poor insurance density which we have, that is the total premium which has been paid divided by the total population. So this actually showcases that there is a very less share of population in our country which is actually availing the insurances at first instance. So that actually shows the problem of lack of financial inclusion, lack of financial literacy. To compare that, just look at the insurance density in USA. That is almost 8,885 US dollars. In our country, that is 92, almost 10 times less. Thus, the basic idea is that first and foremost, let's say, even if the people are indulging into businesses, they are not actually insuring a significant sector of it. They are not paying high premium also. So basically the products which also they are buying, they are of very meager value. Now don't you think that it also basically implies that the people are keeping their very less amount of money with such large bodies, and if such large bodies do not have these finances, how they will actually invest or give loans, and thus don't you think our money multiplier is actually being compromised here? The third problem is the heavy public sector domination which exists. So for example, the total insurance sector of our country, 57% of it is still held by Life Insurance Corporation itself. The idea is that such monopolization actually leads to a non-competitive market. And such non-competitive market actually leads to what? Poor price discovery. And such poor price discovery actually leads to costly insurance product. which basically ends up deterring the price sensitive consumer market which our country has. Even the total insurance which we are actually availing, there is a heavy dominance of life insurance sector, and thus this insurance sector in our country is not catering to the demand of emerging challenges. So for example, let's say if there are rising extreme weather events, like for example tropical cyclone, and if my crop which I am growing or my house is not covered or insured from this tropical cyclone, then don't you think that will again act as a kind of a deterrent for me to buy insurance altogether? Then there prevails digital gap. So as per the Indian Digital Report of 2023, only 56% of the rural population actually had smartphones and they had access to fast internet connectivity. So again, that act as a kind of a deterrent. To what? There are various insurance companies who are actually providing various kind of innovative products, but in online method. So don't you think that 44% almost of rural population is completely devoid of such facility? And this is actually reflected in the data that how only 8 to 10% of rural India has actually availed one or another kind of insurance. Just look at the headline itself. The Consumer Commission actually comes down heavily on Life Corporation of India, actually criticizing it for attempting to repudiate the claims while being willing to issue policies to vulnerable clients. Or the recent investment which this LIC has made now in the Adani Group. And the opposition is demanding for an investigation by the Public Accounts Committee. So, what are the steps which has been taken by the Insurance and Regulatory Development Authority of India? First and foremost, the government actually launched Saral Bima Yojana, where it said that there is now going to be a universal guideline and that has to be followed by all the life insurance company. Then it said that we are going to provide you non-life insurance of 5 to 25 lakh rupees. And this can be availed by anyone who is above the age of 18 years. So earlier there was a threshold that such insurance can be given only to the person up to the age of 65 years. But now the government has removed that. Second, the government created a Sugam platform where the government is actually bringing the consumer, the distributors, the various insurance companies at one platform. For what? For effective price discovery. Then the government brought Vistar, where the government is specifically providing such insurance to women entrepreneurs. Then the government launched Bima Vahak. Under Bima Vahak, the government is saying that, let's say for example, there is an individual who comes at one platform to buy life insurance. Then such platform itself will actually provide various kind of insurances, car insurance, vehicle insurance, various kind of insurances on that one platform itself, for which the government is also creating a digital health registries. When we have understood this, also remember that from the prelim section, the Public Accounts Committee becomes very important, right? So here we have covered all the three important committees: the Public Account Committee, the Public Undertaking and the Estimate Committee. The Public Account Committee specifically was created through the Montague-Chelmsford Reform or Government of India Act 1919 in the year of 1921. It consists of 22 members, 15 of them comes from Lok Sabha and 7 of them comes from Rajya Sabha. Who act as a chairman of this Public Account Committee? A member from Lok Sabha. Take. The convention is that ideally the chairman of such Public Account Committee shall come from opposition. Remember, it's not a kind of a written kind of a formula which we have to follow, rather only a convention. No minister is part of any of such financial committee. Chairman of all of such financial committee actually come from Lok Sabha. The members of all committees are elected by the respective houses. Thus, all the parties can actually get due representation in it. So, Public Accounts Committee specifically deals with the Comptroller and Auditor General's report on appropriation and finance, created for the term of 1 year. Remember, whatever the suggestions which they will give, they will be only advisory in the nature. And as it is a not executive body, they cannot issue order. Remember this table, very dear to you for the prelims examination, and we move forward to the next news, where we will discuss in brief, as the article today highlights, the India's largest hydropower project. What is the context of the news? So, one of the 8 units of India's largest hydropower project, that is the 2000 megawatt Subansiri lower hydroelectric project. It is going to be created between the Arunachal Pradesh and Assam boundary, specifically in Arunachal Pradesh. The same Arunachal Pradesh which you guys can recall from the previous lecture, how it has launched a decade of hydropower between the year of 2025 to 2035, where it is targeting to generate 58,000 megawatts of hydropower by the year of 2035 by using various mega, large and small hydroelectric projects network. The idea is that from these projects, the Arunachal Pradesh will actually avail 12% free power from each of these hydroelectric projects for the functions of the government itself, thus reducing its overall carbon footprint. And specifically 1% of such power generation will be actually given for the local development fund. From this, Arunachal Pradesh is expecting to generate a revenue of 4,500 crore in annual revenue by the year of 2035. Here you guys can see the India's largest hydropower project, and that is Subansiri Lower Hydel project. So in this context, what is the status of the installed capacity of hydropower in our country? The total installed hydropower capacity is of 54 gigawatt as of June 2025. Here you guys can see the kind of an estimated share of renewable energy in our country. 45% of total renewable energy coming from solar power, 23% of total coming from hydropower. The wind power contributes to 23%, small hydropower to 2.5%, and biopower contributes to 5.6%. Between 24 to 25, 800 megawatt of hydropower capacity has been added, and its share in the total renewable energy generation stands at around 20 to 23%. And in the total power generation in our country, which also includes the power from the thermal power plants or fossil fuel, the hydropower share accounts to 8.7%. These are the world's biggest hydropower. Very recently, India has actually overtaken Russia to become the 5th largest hydropower in the world. For your prelims, a very specific table has been created where the very important such hydroelectric projects across the country, on the bank of which river and in which state has been mentioned for you. Like for example, Nagarjuna Sagar on the bank of river Krishna in Andhra Pradesh, or Sardar Sarovar on the bank of river Narmada in the state of Gujarat. Very recently, we were also discussing about a specific environmental conservation movement which was launched against this Sardar Sarovar Dam. Can anybody tell me the name of that environmental conservation movement and one specific judgment related to the environment conservation? With this, we move forward to the next news, where we are going to learn about a new award which has been launched by the government of India. What is the context? The center announced the Rashtriya Vigyan Puraskar, a kind of a Padma-style national award for scientific achievement, with 24 individual awards and 1 team honor. So it is given to individuals as well as a team. The eminent physicist Jayant Vishnu Narlikar, who actually passed away in the month of May, was actually announced the recipient of the Vigyan Ratna, that is an award for lifetime contribution. So it is also given posthumously as well. So keep these two key things in your mind. Now, what is this Rashtriya Vigyan Puraskar? It is actually a national award which was instituted by the government of India to recognize the contribution of researchers in the field of science and technology and innovation. For the first time, it was actually given in the year of 2024, a day ahead of the National Space Day. So, National Space Day is actually celebrated on 23rd of August. Can anybody tell me why? Because on 23rd of August, Chandrayaan 3 actually landed on the south pole of the moon, making our country the first country in the world to actually achieve that feat, and also making our country the 4th country in the world to actually land on the moon altogether. So to decide this award, there is a kind of a controversy which revolves around it. Because to actually decide who will get this award, first the scrutiny is done by 17-member panel, who is headed by the principal scientific advisor to the government of India. But then ultimately the decision is taken by the Minister of Science and Technology, who is actually accused that last year he actually kind of discarded the recommendation of many of such kind of the recipients which were recommended by this member committee because they were kind of critical to the government. Also, there exist 4 categories of award. Vigyan Ratna, which is given for the lifetime achievement and contribution in the field of science and technology. Second is Vigyan Shri, which is given for distinguished contribution. Vigyan Yuva or Swaroop Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Award is actually given to the young scientists who are typically up to the age of 45 years. Following which, you can also call me Gen Alpha at this stage. Then Vigyan team. It is actually given to a team where 3 or more innovators are actually working collaboratively. Ultimately, who is this Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar, on the name of which this Vigyan Yuva Award is actually dedicated or given to? Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar is actually considered as the father of the research laboratories in our country and also acted as the first Director General of the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, where he conducted a pioneer research on colloids. What are colloids? Colloids are basically a substance where the particles are actually dispersed through another substance, like for example milk, fog, etc. He also discovered various innovative methods to actually utilize the Indian bauxite, clay, minerals for the industrial chemicals. And he is also known for Bhatnagar-Mathur magnetic interference, which was actually used to measure the magnetic properties of various materials. So keep this key achievements of Indians in the field of science and technology in the news, and we move forward to the next one, where we are going to learn about the recent discovery which has been made by the Google's AI. So, the Google's launch of a suite of artificial intelligence tools, which its researchers actually reported to be successful at not only suggesting a new drug combination for cancer therapy, but even stood up to early test in the laboratory. And that is actually a signal that how now the research scientists can actually integrate artificial intelligence as well into the process of scientific discovery. So this Google's AI tool was basically C2S scale model, which was actually trained on a large data set for real world patients and cell line data. This AI model actually proposed a potential cancer drug combination that scientists validated in the lab test as well. It basically suggested a new use for your cell-meter certi, improving the immune detection of early stage cancerous tumors altogether. Researchers view such advance as signs that AI could actually tackle deeper scientific and mathematical problems in the future. Google has already made another significant kind of leap in this particular context. To understand that, let's first understand that what does we mean when we are actually saying these cells, cancer cells. What are these cells? Cells are basically, it contains a nucleus. The nucleus which actually contains a chromosome. It is the chromosome in the nucleus of a cell which is actually responsible for passing the genetic information. This genetic information of yours is actually kind of coded into protein and nucleic acid. The nucleic acid are of two types, deoxyribonucleic acid and ribonucleic acid. The deoxyribonucleic acid and RNA, DNA RNA, both of them actually contains three important base pair nucleobases, that is cytosine, guanine, adenine. Thymine or T is found in DNA and uracil or U is found in RNA. So this genetic info is actually stored in DNA inside the nucleus of each cell. This information is actually copied to messenger RNA. Now see, this is a cellular organism. It uses this messenger RNA for the synthesis of protein, which is actually done on the ribosome, which is a specialized cell organelle. So protein is actually made up in two steps. The first is transcription, where cell actually copies the DNA sequence into the mRNA. And then the second process is translation, where tRNA actually brings the amino acid into the ribosome. This mRNA moves from the nucleus to ribosome, making this protein, and this protein will eventually pass the genetic information from one generation to another. This is where Google actually made a very kind of a quantum jump it took place, where its AI model AlphaFold 3, which was developed by Google's DeepMind, actually ended up predicting the structure and interaction of all life molecules including DNA. And it could even study the RNA structure for further research on the cellular system. So remember these basic transcription translation methods, remember DNA and RNA, and remember this AlphaFold 3, and we move forward to the last news of the day, where we are going to learn about a new scheme today. Why the scheme is in the news? Because the Union Minister for Agriculture, when he was visiting Tamil Nadu, he basically talked about the Viksit Krishi Sankalp Abhiyan. What is this Viksit Krishi Sankalp Abhiyan? It is basically conducted biannually before the Kharif and the Rabi cropping season, the season which prevails in our country since time immemorial. For example, in the Mughal time period, they used to called as do fasla system, two kind of different type of crops which are grown and they have a kind of a time or gap or month gap between them. Do fasla system, Rabi and Kharif. Under this specific Viksit Krishi Sankalp Abhiyan, field level guidance is actually provided to the farmers to improve the crop production, and it aims to cover 65,000 villages and engage more than 1 crore farmers. It is organized by Krishi Vigyan Kendra, Indian Council of Agriculture Research and Farmer Producer Organization, where the farmers are being sensitized about the Namo Drone Didi, Kisan Suvidha app, Agricultural Accelerator Fund, etc. The minister also said that the Tamil Nadu government should try to identify eligible farmers in the state to enroll them in the Pradhan Mantri Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana, which has been launched very recently by the government, and other centrally sponsored schemes that will actually benefit the farmers, where he actually kind of requested the chief minister to prepare a list of eligible farmers who can be added in the scheme as beneficiaries. So what is this Pradhan Mantri Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana? Under it, 100 and aspirational district has actually been identified across 29 states and UTs, which we have covered in detail. Can anybody of you tell me that under this 100 aspirational district program, under this Dhan Dhanya Yojana, which particular state has got the highest number of districts? Second, what is the parameter for the identification? That these districts have low productivity of crop, or they have moderate crop intensity and below average access to credit. The number of districts, which varies from state to state, has been decided on the basis of net cropped area and operational land holding. So under this scheme, the government is going to convert 36 scheme of 11 departments to actually kind of address the issues which farmers are facing at the grassroots level in the 100 underdeveloped districts or blocks. Now, schemes like, for example, Krishi Sinchai Yojana, soil health card scheme, under which a kind of a health card is being provided to the farmers to actually maintain the N is to P is to K ratio into the 4 is to 2 is to 1, or to promote organic farming to actually reduce down the input cost under Parampragat Krishi Vikas Yojana, to ensure the crops of the farmers under Fasal Bima Yojana, and ultimately digitize the land records under Swamitva scheme. So remember all of these schemes very dear to you for the upcoming prelims. And with this, we have reached to the end of our discussion today. Do not forget to attempt the questions at the end of the video and test your knowledge. We will meet in a very interesting discussion very soon. Till then, all the very best for your preparation and thank you.